everyone, welcome back to my channel. In my previous video, we learned certain basic concepts of AI system. In this video, we are going to learn the key components of AI system, which is the data and algorithm. We will also learn what is machine learning and the different types of machine learning. So let's get started. Now that we understand the building blocks of an AI system, let's understand the first building block, which is data. Data is any piece of information that can be collected, stored, and analyzed. Data can be anything. It can be numbers, it can be text, it can be images, it can be your videos, it can be your voice records. Even a simple click on the website is a data. Nowadays, browsing any of the information, say, supposing you want to purchase an item and then you're browsing their website, even though you don't purchase the item, you're just browsing it. When you go to another website, you will still keep getting the ads of the same item. Why is that? Because every click of yours is being captured somewhere. And then, based on the clicks that you do on the internet, that information is being stored, that data is being analyzed, and they try to find some patterns and make some predictions. Based on that, they start throwing you those similar ads because they understand what exactly you're browsing. So that is the power of data. And that's why we say the data is the new oil. Imagine a company A wants to open a new restaurant in a city. So instead of just guessing, it'll just it uses data to make the decision. See, randomly, if I go and try to understand, okay, where should I open my new restaurant, then there is a possibility that my business can go in loss as well. But instead of that, if the company analyzes how many food orders come from different neighborhoods, what cuisines people prefer, and where exactly is the delivery demand high. If a company analyzes these data and then opens a restaurant, there is a possibility that there will be profit in his business rather than just guessing and opening a restaurant randomly in any place, right? That is the power of data. So, businesses and AI systems use data to actually find patterns, make predictions, and improve decisions. Now, coming to algorithms. Algorithm is actually used to train an AI model. Algorithm is a computational procedure or a set of instructions or rules which are designed to perform a specific task by the AI system. Maybe it could be solving a problem, making predictions, making decisions, whatever. Now, there are different types of algorithm: linear regression, logistic regression, decision trees, random forest, and neural networks. And note, this is highly testable in your AIGP exam. Let's understand what is linear regression. It's very simple. It is a statistical method which is used to predict a continuous value. See, whenever there is any value or any numerical data that has to be predicted, consider it as a linear regression algorithm. For example, if the AI has to predict price of any particular item in the coming years, or if it has to predict the temperature for the next 5 years, or if it has to predict the sale of any product, then all these are nothing but a numerical value, right? In that case, linear regression algorithm will be used, a statistical method used to predict a continuous value like a price, temperature, or sales based on the relationship between variables, whatever variables you give. Like, for example, if you say, can you tell me the price of the land in Bangalore in the next 5 years for this particular location? So, based on this variable, it will just give you a numeric value. Then that is linear regression. It fits a straight line through data points to estimate the outcome. Like predicting a house prices, depending on the size and the location, it will give you a value. Next is logistic regression. Logistic regression, it predicts the probability of an outcome. Whenever there is a yes no statement or a true false statement that is required, then we use logistic regression algorithm. For example, predicting whether an email is a spam or not, or in manufacturing quality control, just to understand whether there is a manufacturing defect in the product or not. If you want to predict that, then you can use these kind of algorithm. It predicts the probability of an outcome belonging to a category. It could be yes, no, or true, false. For example, predicting whether an email is spam or not, or in manufacturing quality control, where it classifies the product as defective or non defective, then you use logistic regression. In short, please note whenever there is any true false statements or any yes no category that needs to be done, use logistic regression. In the exam, asking you, can you tell us which algorithm will be used where a numerical value has to be predicted? Or if they give you a condition like which algorithm will be used to predict the house prices in the coming year or for this particular location, then understand that it is a linear regression algorithm that will be used. Decision tree, a model that makes decision by splitting the data into branches based on rules. Imagine your AI system just like a tree. Say, for example, if an AI system needs to sanction a loan, then the AI system will have many variables on which it will, based on which it will decide whether the loan has to be sanctioned or not. And what are the variables? It could be income, it could be the credit score, or it could be the age of the person who's applying for the loan. Imagine the decision that you make as a tree, and all these variables are like the branches. So the AI system will check all these conditions before making a decision. So, whenever an AI model makes a decision by splitting the data into branches based on the rules, then each branch will be representing a choice and the tree ends in a decision or prediction. Then that is a decision tree. Next is a random forest. See, what is a tree and what is a forest? A forest is nothing but, what is a forest? Group of trees will make a forest, correct? Whenever there are multiple decision trees involved, then it becomes a random forest. And assemble method that combines many decision trees to improve accuracy and reduce errors. Each tree votes and the majority decision is chosen. Let's take the same example. Say you want to sanction a loan of a person. Then to sanction the loan, you will check on the various variables, right? Like income, credit score, and age. When it comes to income, you will identify, okay, is this person self-employed or is he working in any of the organization? And if he is working, is he working in public sector or is he working in a private sector? Then after that, okay, if he's having his own business, what is his turnover per year? If he's working in a public or a private sector, what is his annual income? Like this, you'll have sub branches, correct? At that point of time, you will use random forest. Next is neural network. Neural network algorithm is inspired by human brains. Our brain is made up of billions of tiny cells called neurons, right? So this is the image of our brain which I have taken from the internet. Every neuron is connected to each and every neuron inside our brain. And that is the reason we are able to think, learn, and make decisions. So inspired by human brains, these algorithm they consist of layers of interconnected nodes, okay, and then they are used to process the data. A neural network in AI is a computer model which is inspired by the brain, but instead of using real neurons, it uses mathematical units to process the information. For example, for image recognition, for voice recognition, and for face recognition, neural networks are used because they are powerful for recognizing complex patterns. Neural network looks for patterns. For example, if it has to identify an animal, then it will check the shape of the ears, the shape of eyes, the fur, and etc. And then based on these patterns, it will say, okay, this is a cat or this is a dog or whatever. Neural network basically works in three layers: input layer, hidden layer, and output layer. Input layer, it just takes that data. Hidden layers is we don't know how many nodes it will connect to process the data and then find the pattern. And then finally, it gives you the result. And when it gives out the result, it is called as a output layer. Neural network basically looks for patterns. Whenever it finds new patterns, it starts to realign itself and then learn from the new patterns. Something like our brain, right? Whenever we learn new things or whenever we read any books, there is new connections that takes place in our brain. That is the reason whenever you're thinking more or thinking from different perspectives, you say, right, that my brain is rewiring. Why? Because there are new connections, new patterns that are formed inside your brain, and neural network kinds of depicts your human brain. That is the reason it is called neural network. Let's understand how exactly is an AI system trained to make such predictions or give out a very fine result. AI system, they don't really inherently possess any ability to solve complex problems. They must first undergo a learning process to acquire the necessary skills to address challenges effectively. Just like a child, once the child is born, he does not have the knowledge of any language. He does not know English, he does not know Spanish, French, Hindi, nothing. But over the time, the learning process carries on, and then eventually he learns the language. Same works with the AI system. The process of teaching AI system is called machine learning. Machine learning is nothing but a process of teaching the AI system. Let's understand the step by step process of learning of an AI system. First, what happens? We input the data into the machine. Okay, we give, for example, if you want the AI system to identify all the breeds of the dog, then you input thousands and millions of images of dog into the AI machine. AI machine will start reading from these 1 million pictures, and then when you ask, it'll start giving you the answers. It'll start predicting, okay, this dog belongs to this breed and this dog is this particular breed. But then there will be some errors. How was it wrong? Then why did I make the mistake? And then the error calculation happens. Learning from the mistakes, just like how we humans learn from a mistake, AI system also learns from its mistakes. That is, AI adjusts its internal settings. How it learns from these mistakes, there will be certain settings called weights and many other parameters inside the AI machines, right? It'll do the resetting of these internal settings and then repeat many times. Once it corrects, and then again it'll start predicting. Again, if it finds that it has made an error, it'll calculate the error and then again learn from the mistake. So this process keeps going on. It will predict, it will do the error calculation, again it'll relearn. So this cycle goes on until it gets perfect in providing the answer. This cycle happens thousands or millions of times. As a result, AI becomes more accurate. For that matter, even if you're learning any sports or learning any new craft, you have to repeat as many times as you can. Only then you can become perfect at that particular sport or at that particular craft, right? I was listening to one of a very famous badminton player, and he said, we practice each shot 500 times. So repetition is the key here. Same works with the AI system as well. Machine learning is nothing but pure max. Okay. In your school days and in your college days, you must have learned statistics, permutations and combinations, linear algebra, vectors, matrix, calculus. All these mathematical concepts are used to make your machine learn. And these concepts are used in machine learning. So, using these concepts, your machines will become an artificial intelligent machine. What is machine learning? Machine learning is a branch of artificial intelligence that enables computers to learn patterns from data and make predictions or decisions without being explicitly programmed for each task. That is what automation was, right? We used to write programs for the machine or for the computers to perform any tasks. But in machine learning, what happens? Itself will learn from the data and then make predictions or maybe decisions based on the data that is being provided. So you don't have to do any programming, the machine itself will learn. So this concept is called as machine learning. Your fraud detection systems, your chatbots, or your autonomous vehicles, all these are possible because of machine learning. There are different types of machine learning. Machine learning broadly can be divided into four types: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, and semi supervised learning. Supervised learning is again classified into two, and unsupervised learning is classified into two, which is clustering and association rule of learning. Supervised learning is is again divided into two groups, which is classification and regression. So let's learn each of these types of machine learning in detail. And remember, this is highly testable in the exam. So learn these concepts very well. Supervised learning. The model is trained on data that already has labels, inputs with correct answer. It learns the relationship between input and outputs so it can predict the outcomes for the new data. I will give 1 million images of dogs to my AI system. Okay. And then I will say, okay, this dog belongs to this particular breed. So I will label each of the image of the dogs and I'll give it to the machine, and the machine will learn. My AI system will learn depending on the data that is provided, and I've labeled each and every data. So the machine will then read from all these data that I have provided. And after that, when I give an image of a dog without any label, it will be able to predict what breed this dog belongs to. That is how supervised learning works. Let's read this. The model is trained on data that already has labels, that is, inputs with the correct answer. It learns the relationship between inputs and outputs so it can predict the outcomes of the new data. So when you give a new image, it is able to recognize which breed the dog belongs to. Okay. Say for example, you give the different house sizes and then you say the price. You say, for example, 100 square feet is costing me $25. Very simple. Okay. And then 110 square feet is costing me $30, whatever. Then when you ask the system, tell me how much will 1,025 square feet cost, it will be able to predict the price. Okay. That is how a machine learns from supervised learning. You're giving the data, the labels along with the data, and then you're asking for a to predict for an unknown data, it will be able to predict. There are two types of supervised learning, regression and classification. Regression predicts continuous values. It can forecast the price of the house based on the size and the location. Okay, it will only give you the values. So remember, whenever there is any numeric data involved in the output, think of it as regression. Classification predicts the categories or the classes. For example, whether it is a spam email or it is not a spam email, whether uh, uh, whether today it is going to rain or not rain, something like that. It can classify, it can predict the categories, whereas regression will only predict the numeric data. Okay, tell me what is the temperature going to be tomorrow, or say what will be the price of this land after 10 years, something like that. Okay, it will only focus on the values, whereas classification will focus on the categories or the classes. Next, unsupervised learning. Remember, in supervised learning, I told you that the data will be labeled. Say, for example, I'm giving 1 million images of dogs which are labeled. Here, we will not provide the label. We will just give the data. So it is called as unsupervised learning. See here, unsupervised learning. The model is trained on data without labels. It looks for hidden patterns, grouping, or structures in the data. Example, grouping customers into segments based on their shopping behavior without knowing categories beforehand. What happens in unsupervised learning is it will just take the data and it will do its own analysis and read the pattern from that data and then predict the outcome. For example, say on this particular location, pizza sale is very high, and say location A, and in location B, the sale of pasta is very high. So what AI will do is it will read these patterns and it will say it's better to set up a restaurant that can sell pizza in location A. Here you have not given any labels to the AI. You have just fed the data and the AI has predicted an outcome and given you some information without you giving any labels to the data. Now you may think like, is unsupervised learning really helpful? The system learns by itself by the hidden patterns. It just reads the different patterns. It just groups based on the structure or based on the information, and then finally it will be able to predict the new data. Like for example, if you're grouping customers into different segments based on their shopping behaviors without knowing any categories beforehand, we log into so many online portals, correct, online websites, and we purchase different items. So AI will be able to identify which customer will buy which product next. It'll be able to predict it. How is that? Because it has the data of this customer A. So every day, if this customer has bought certain amount of groceries for 1 month, it can view the data, the purchasing habit of this customer, and then finally it can tell you that okay, this customer is likely to purchase this particular item. So, like this, we are not feeding any labels to the data. We are just feeding the raw data into the system, and the AI will be able to predict the new item depending on the pattern, the grouping, and the structure of the data that has been fed. Unsupervised learning is also very important. It's not that only supervised learning is important. Now, in unsupervised learning, there are two categories. One is clustering and associated rule of learning. In clustering, what happens? It groups similar data points together. For example, segmenting customers by their shopping behavior, or saying, okay, all these are products related to dental care. So all these items should go in one particular place. And all these, say, another items are related to childcare. Okay, then all these powders, baby powders and baby diapers and things like that will get into this section. So it can group different items. Whereas in associated rule of learning, what happens? Finds rules or relationship between the variables. Example, market basket analysis. That is like people who buy bread will often buy butter, correct? So wherever they place bread, they will make sure they place butter, and they also place cheese. Okay, the similar items they place together. For example, if they're placing coffee here, then maybe they will also place some coffee mugs close by. So we know that people will buy these things in combination. Wherever they place toothpaste, they'll ensure that they also have a rack of toothbrushes there. That's where associated rule of learning comes into picture. I hope this is clear now. Now let's go to reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning. The model learns by interacting with an environment, receiving rewards or penalties for its action, and then improving its strategy over the time. So here the model does not care whether it is labeled data, unlabeled data, whatever. Okay, it just learns, and then once the action is right, it gets a reward point, and if the action is incorrect, it gets a negative reward points. That is the penalties. Okay, if it is getting good reward points, then it understands that its behavior is correct. But if it is getting more penalties, it understands that it has to make corrections, and then it changes its behavior. And then finally, the goal is to maximize the rewards. So over the period of time, based on this learning, which is also called as reinforcement learning, it will get itself better. The performance will get better over the time. So that is nothing but reinforcement learning. Example, a robot learning to walk by trial and error, adjusting its movement based on success or failure. Then YouTube suggestion videos. Sometimes you get all irrelevant suggestions. So that is again a penalty. Okay. Every viewer should get its relatable YouTube suggestions. Self-driving cars learning to self-drive, then the concept is learning by doing. Okay, the system doesn't use pre-labeled data set. Instead, it learns through trial and error, repeating actions and adjusting based on the feedback from its environment. Like this, the feedback from the agent will go, okay, you're giving the wrong answer, please give the right answer, use this, relearn again, then it will give you the correct answer. Penalties for making mistakes. When the system makes an error, it gets a penalty, that is a negative reward. Bigger mistakes lead to bigger penalties. Rewards, there is rewards for success. When an action leads to good outcome, the system gets reward. This encourages it to repeat the same behavior in future. So the goal is to maximize rewards. Over the time, the system learns which action brings the most reward, and which is needed to improve its performance. So this is reinforcement learning. I told you that these are the building blocks of an AI system. We did discuss about data. We learned about algorithm, and we also learned about machine learning, how AI system does its learning. And in my next video, we will be understanding what is model. So until then, thank you for watching and stay tuned.